Well, I guess the good news is that it was pretty much a virtually violence-free weekend in the UK. A bit of trouble in Northern Ireland, but that was about it. But the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has said that the disorder that we saw last week shows that people feel crime has no consequences and that Britain, therefore, has lost respect for its police.
So, is she right? Have we lost our regard for the law in this country? And how can it be restored? Well, former Chief Superintendent of the Met Police, Dale Babu, says the police have been disrespected by many Home Secretaries, and that disrespect has now trickled down to the public. And Solicitor Paul Britton, who says it's a load of nonsense and there's no reason to believe this country has a broken relationship with law enforcement. Let's come to you first of all. So the brand new Home Secretary says we've lost that for police. But you say, presumably, previous Home Secretaries have caused that.
Yeah, that's right, Kate. If you look at what Suella Braverman said, I mean, she talked about the police being biased in its policing of demonstrations. She openly argued with police chiefs, and it was quite disrespectful. And I think that's trickled down to the public. The confidence, the level of confidence in policing has never been lower. And it's not just the usual people who have that lack of confidence. Black people, Asian people, young people, gay people. It's across the board. You know, middle-aged women in their 60s. I was at a dinner table the other night complaining about how their respect for the police has been reduced.
Now, obviously, we know that 99% of all police officers do a heck of a good job under terribly difficult conditions.
That's right.
And often with massive funding issues. But there have been some very high-profile stories about individual police officers who have, in some cases, broken the law themselves, and in other cases, behaved appallingly. And those cases have hit the headlines. Do the police themselves have to take some responsibility in that broken trust?
No, absolutely. So Wayne Couzens, David Carrick, I mean, there are other police officers whose crimes were so appalling that it shook the foundations of confidence in the police. But these are individuals. I think the vast majority of police officers have done a very good job. And we've seen over the last week the phenomenal work that police officers have done fighting the far-right riots that have gone on up and down.
That was my point before the break. I'm slightly surprised by the Home Secretary's statement this morning because, actually, I would have thought that people's estimation of the police has gone up over the last week because of the way they behaved, the self-control that they exhibited, and the success they've had in making so many arrests and Richard, pushing things through.
Richard, you'd be right. That's exactly how the public opinion is at the moment. If we look at the data and the YouGov polls, confidence in the police is at an all-time high. Sadly,
because of last week?
Well, just in general. I mean, there has been no polling data since last week, but the fact that the police are acting quickly and these criminals are being brought to justice quickly, it's necessary because it sends a clear message to the rest of the country. And this has happened everywhere. This has been from the north to the south, from the east to the west. We all know someone that's been in close proximity to a riot, a cousin or a friend or a relative. And it's important that these people are brought before the courts, that they are sentenced appropriately, and that the rest of the country knows that this behaviour is not acceptable. Suella Braverman's comments actually weren't so damaging. Trust in the police is at an all-time high. It's roughly 70% on the scale. Confidence in the police is high. Over 60% of people believe
just
that they will
untrue.
be... I'm not. If you check the YouGov data,
untrue.
you'll see over 63% of the public believe that they will be treated fairly by the police, regardless of where they come from.
How would you counter that?
No, I think you can't pick and choose which bits of the statistics
But you've just said today that you have confidence in the police.
I have confidence. I think the police are doing a phenomenal job. But I think
what's happened, they are as well. So that's true.
But the problem has been they have been disrespected by Home Secretaries like Suella Braverman. And what she said, and she openly fought with the police chief.
Give us an example of something specific that you're referring to in terms of disrespect.
OK, so Suella Braverman says when the police were dealing with demonstrations, she said the police favoured certain groups.
This idea of two-tier policing.
Yeah, and that shows she said, well, the police have been far too hard on the far right. In fact, she emboldened the far right to come out to some of the demonstrations.
We've had quite a few people contacting us, viewers contacting us this morning, saying it would be good to be able to see a few police out on the beat to disrespect, because we don't see them anymore. And
that's the problem.
And that's certainly true. You simply
that's
don't
what we saw last week.
You don't see bobbies on the beat in the way that you used to. And I'm just thinking of my area of London. There are now 4 police stations which are up and running until about 15 years ago. They're all now blocks of flats. I mean, the police presence on the high street isn't just simply
Richard,
no longer
that's
there.
precisely the point, you see. When you've had such huge austerity cuts, 20,000 police officers cut, 18,500 police.
No, that's not right. That's
and then
not right.
the 20,000 police officers, and we're now replacing the 20,000 police officers that we're now replacing. We're now having many of them leaving in their first 2 years. So the reality, we've got to stick to the facts here. And the facts are that 20,000 cuts has had a massive impact. I don't know a single person who hasn't had dealing with police and been disappointed with their investigation. No, I've sat in this studio.
Car thefts, burglary.
Yeah, so people will say, I've sort of had my phone nicked and it's in this particular address. Can you go to that address? And the police haven't gone there. So that's a reality. You know, I'm not here to attack the police. I think what the police have done in the last 10 days is nothing short of phenomenal, right? But the reality is, when you've had such huge cuts, when you've had the leadership from the Home Secretary's been so poor, that you need a reset. And I think what we're now seeing is we've got the grown-ups in the room, we're having this sensible conversation about ensuring that we have respect for our police with the resources back.
Why is any of that wrong?
Growing up in the room is really unhelpful.
No, just 1 second, because we're getting away from what the Home Secretary is actually saying here, which we have to be clear. What she's saying is that what happened last week, the vast volume of numbers of police on the streets and the quick sentencing is the way it should be. What she's referring to is how it's been before. And how do we manage to keep that? That's the problem.
Yvette Cooper is saying that there is an attack on the rule of law, which is just not right. I mean, if we're saying that different groups are being policed differently, well, then that is not right, because one of the principles of the rule of law is that everybody is... No, that's right. But I think she's using the rule of law to grab headlines. She's not using it with its true meaning. In terms of police numbers, if there's been a cut of 20,000 officers, well, we're still doing really well, because there's over 171,000 police officers in this country. In the 90s, there was 100,000. We've almost doubled in numbers of the police. In fact, they're at an all-time high at the moment.
So why do we never see them?
And sadly, look, it's priorities, isn't it? And as we've seen, when the public are at risk, and we're at risk from this rioting, they will come down on it very quickly. Swift, quick justice. What the police, where their resources are allocated at the moment, is policing things like Facebook and Instagram. So they are policing, but they are policing things that we don't visually see so much. And I think that is where, and I'm sure your member of the public didn't mean they want to disrespect the police if they see them out.
No, they were being ironic.
Yeah.
They were making the point.
But there are a lot of police that, you know, the presence at the moment is very visual.
All right, we're going to have to end it there. Thank you both very much indeed for coming in.